Thanks again, everybody, for joining our webinar today. Let's introduce ourselves. I will start with myself. I'm Raphael Calvert. I'm Product Manager here at Pathlock for threat detection and response. And I'm glad to have you here and to explain a bit how you can move from an executive to a security analyst with our new solution we offer within Pathlock. Jonathan.
My name is Jonathan Stross. I'm subject matter expert for the application security at Pathlock. I've been in the business since 5 years, and yeah, happy to introduce and show them what our capabilities are today and how actually automation in threat detection is actually a little bit more simple than people think.
Thank you, John. So let's have a quick look on who is Pathlock. Pathlock is an international company focusing on SAP security. Yeah, we have offices all over the world, and since last year we are joined with 5 companies to get one of the market leaders in application security. Yeah, so that's our portfolio. Let's check here. Sorry for the headline, it's German. I did not see that. Yeah, it's our Pathlock portfolio. But let's focus on the bullet points. We have solutions 360 degrees to secure your applications and access governance, process controls, and application security. Today we will focus a bit on application security, but to apply automation within our threat detection response, we use process controls as well. So we use the data masking functionalities for that. So we have a combination about both layers here we're talking about today. And just for quick introduction in the topics. Now let's see what our market management challenges. Management is facing different challenges. They have to be pointed within the business. Let's start with the 300%, and that's the increase in cybercrime since COVID-19 pandemic starts. That's from the FBI Crime Compliant Center Report 2022. So there's a lot of more cybercrime since COVID because a lot of people start working from home office, not going to office any longer. So we have to face that in our management as well. And also the big issue is that there are more than 700,000 open cybersecurity positions alone in the United States. So in global market, there's a lot of more. We see also 98% growth needed in the global cybersecurity workforce, but actually there's 700,000 people missing. So there's a gap, and you need automation to face that challenge. Jonathan, might you want to grab one or two
Sure.
Other bullets?
Sure. So talking about the costs and also the days, the key message here is quite clear. Either you hire a bunch of people really analyzing potential risks in your systems. So let's say that in order to compensate not having a Xeum solution, you have 20 users, 20 employees only focusing on looking at logs. It will be quite expensive. And also the problem there is humans do make mistakes, and as always in the free market, resources are limited. So what you normally then do is, okay, instead of doing that, I introduce a Xeum solution. But the core problem with Xeum solutions is they are only as good as, of course, the mind behind the patterns and the structure of the patterns for event detection. So we face overall over 277 days until data breach has been reported. So until actions to remediate actually what already happened started. So all the playbooks, if you have defined, are then starting to be executed after 277 days. And therefore, the annual cost of cybercrime of course increases, and we have also seen that this number of 277 days is always stagnating. Combine that, of course, with the 700,000 open positions in the US, you will find that it's getting more and more expensive hiring qualified people. And then, therefore, of course, you cannot then hire every one of them. Really having a look on your logs, you need to have somehow an automation in order to stay compliant.
Thank you, Jonathan. So how to face these challenges we see on that slide? And for that, we here on Pathlock side, we say we have different layers of protection. Let's start with the center. It's role-based access control. That's the first level or layer of protection you shall start with. Assign a good role concept or create a role concept and assign that so that you minimize the access to your SAP environment or other business applications by roles. If you have a good role concept, sometimes you need colleagues like engineers, they have to travel, and they travel to China or to southern parts of America, so South America. You pay, okay, if you're not based in the United States with your AP address, you shall not see the data you're asking for, or maybe you're entering the system out of your normal working hours. So normal people work from 9 to 5 job, let's say like that. And if you're signing in your SAP late in the night, let's see, 11 p.m., then you cannot see the data. Maybe you're restricted or the access is blocked. There are different types of controls and what we can apply here. And then the next, yeah, please.
Also to add here, quite important, if you use the SAP standard transactions like business partners and based on certain attributes as entity or also a certain organization assigned to a certain organization, you want to limit the amount of data being actually displayed. So in BP, you have the payment information, you have then the address of persons, so on and so forth. And you say, okay, well, guess what? That's too much information to do his job, as you should only provide as much information as the person needs to fulfill his job. Then you can also say, based on those attributes, we want to mask or then block their data. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. The next layer then is that you establish a vulnerability detection. So if there are vulnerabilities on your system that you can scan frequently for such vulnerabilities, identify these, find mitigations or solve the vulnerabilities. That also includes transport scanning and code scanning, that you find vulnerabilities within new transports getting into your system or in which are already in your system, code-based, that you can scan own developments on other basic. And then the last layer is threat detection. Threat detection then is that you frequently analyze in real time logs and all stuff's going on, what's going on in your system, and that you scan these logs, and if there are critical information included, that you get a hint on that. And you don't have to read all these logs manually. They will be read by our tool. You don't have to do that manually and get information about the most critical things, just as a short wrap-up. You can start with each layer separately. Our approach is that you start with role-based attribute access control and attribute-based access control, vulnerability detection, threat detection. But also, if you have a missing gap for attribute-based access control and vulnerability detection, you can use threat detection as well. So it's just you can, but it's not a must-have to start with that. And I think Jonathan, there's a slide here for vulnerability management to explain that a bit more in detail, because we are now going into our application security stuff, and let's check out what is case of vulnerability management.
Right, thank you. So yeah, there are a lot of very valid metaphors around what vulnerability management actually is. I've seen this particular one being used by our brain lead developer, Ralph Kempf, and solution owner. And it was the metaphor of the house, the secure house building. You want to secure, of course, if you have something you want to protect for that no thieves will steal it, you need to build a concept around how you secure your house. And there in your house you have various different potential entry points. You have the roof hatches, windows and doors, you have the entrance area, and etc., where potential hacker or thieves can gain access to your house. And it's the same way with actually the SAP system. There are various points around. We have seen our strategy, and our strategy also kind of complements this this issue. That there are different areas where you will access an SAP system. It could be due to broken authorization, broken role concept, a broken configuration, so on and so forth, or 0 days, where you need to make sure that you steadily, quite frequent, establish controls, like having a security guard or RFID tokens to open, just to check that your system is really secure from the outside. Next slide, please.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's also part for vulnerability management. So the next one is threat detection. And I brought a small example as well for threat detection. Let's say that's a blueprint of our office building, and there's some offices with colleagues inside, and at some point, let's say around mid-day, the colleagues will go to the canteen and grab some food. So normally they will lock their doors, and you hope nothing will happen. But to ensure that nothing's going on in your office building, there are cameras in each room, and also if you have these locks and you got locks on the doors, and you got a notification if the door is closed or not, and let's see what's happening. So first, the colleagues are going to the canteen, and then they will stay in the canteen. But then there's a theft in the building, and he thought, okay, I'll check that out. And we got a notification first of all that this door is locked, the second door is locked, and the third door is open. The other doors are locked as well. I did not display here, but the other ones are locked as well. So we got, first of all, a notification on the system, one door is not locked, but the colleague is not in the room. So that's not critical. We don't need an alarm here, but yeah. Then the theft's coming and trying to enter. He's entering the room because the door is not locked. And now there's the alarm, because now it's critical. We just need the alarm when it goes to the critical action, when there's a person inside the room who's not who should not be there, and the door was not locked. So that's what we are doing with threat detection. First, detecting all the data, reading all the logs, and then find complex use cases within this data, like doors open and there's someone in the room, should not be there, and then we raise an alarm and inform the security responsible person. And also we can apply here automation in the backend, because now you need a rule, a playbook. What shall we do if such cases going on? This cybersecurity framework say, okay, there's threat detection, and then there's response. So you define playbooks to how to handle these records. but we go to that on another slide. And first of all, the next point I'll go through is what kind of dashboards do we offer from Pathlock side to enable executives, but also security analysts to work on the whole approach of cybersecurity. So including vulnerability management and threat detection. And that's what you can see on that slide here. So you have infrastructure on your environments of data network, cloud database, operations system, and so on. And then you have applications, IT applications, where the business applications are met with, and you have OT applications where the hardware, like the notebooks and so on, is met with. And within the IT applications, there's SAP as one of the business applications, and for that we are offering the Pathlock Executive Dashboards, and that's a combined view as a high-level information for vulnerability management and threat detection on one page. So you get the main information, what's going on within your SAP security landscape on one page, and you then can drill down as an executive to the Pathlock Security Information Center and the Pathlock Threat Detection Dashboard, which are the dashboards for the specialized area of vulnerability management and system behavior on the other side. So that's the way of usage. And yeah, now Jonathan, maybe you can explain a bit how to implement threat detection for SAP systems with the playbooks and so on, as I started a couple of minutes ago.
Sure. So key thing, of course, is talking about threat detection. It's a very, very complex and technical topic, and this is also, I would say, one of the major challenges I see in the market. That if you talk about different logs and formatting and how to parse them in front of a manager board, they will look at you and they will not understand a single thing. This is not a bad case. It's actually not a problem, but we need to find, of course, a way around how we can then address and make it more easy for people to talk about, get insights about the threat status, and part of that is to have a strategy which takes multiple stakeholders, of course, and different levels of information into account. And this, what you can see here is quite short, but a good approach to start what we found in various projects, how you can make it or threat detection a topic accessible to everyone who needs to have access. First, of course, you need to have a talk with your security experts, classification. What kind of what are my crown jewels? What do I need to protect? What are my standard processes, my standard use cases where I digitalized my business process with SAP or another ERP system? And what could then, having this taken into account, be the potential harm to those processes? So defining the use cases and misuse cases for the protectable goods in your ERP system. This also, as a perk on top, creates also awareness, because people are thinking really about it, and then also you do not have situations at the end where you say, oh well, I haven't taken this into account, so on and so forth, because you have a conversation started in your company, and that's quite important. The second thing is, of course, then the follow-up. Yes.
Let me add one more point here for phase one, the classification part. Why it's not easy to support here from a software perspective. So because it's not easy to define as a software vendor what is the critical information or critical processes, what is the critical documents, what are the critical documents within the application, what are critical data the customer will save, because that's not something the software vendor can do for you. You as a company has to define what are my cron troubles, what is the things, or what are the things I need to protect, and you need to create these awareness to be sure that you're protecting the right things. If you're not aware what you're protecting like nothing. That's something I want to make clear here and to point that out. And I think then the next, you can see the phase 2, Jonathan.
Right. So then, of course, after you have the insights on what needs to be protected and how, you define the playbooks, and you need to define those playbooks as the standard tool that if something happens which raises a threat or is a potential threat to your landscape, that everyone knows how to behave and what to do. So those playbooks could really be step A to B to C to D in illustrating, okay, if someone on productive created a user with SAP all somehow, how to log, how to then behave and escalate. So those processes should be well defined. Those needs also to be, then updated. Of course, threat patterns, threat scenarios are evolving over time. So you need to also update your strategy. And finally, phase 3 is staying informed. So getting the information that actually the events have occurred, that the escalation processes are working as they should. And this is part actually of our detection approach, which we also automate. Next slide,
Yeah,
please.
I think
Right.
here we reach a point where we will switch the presenter because now there's demonstration
Of
coming.
course.
I think you will show us on the system, Jonathan,
Yes.
how such a follow-up action can look like when we apply that. And I think I'll make you as a presenter there, then you can share your screen. You're a presenter right now on that. Please share.
All right. So let me know when you can see my screen. All right.
See.
So as we can see, I'm logged in here as K Peters. And just a short abbreviation what this demo is about. We will see how actually data exfiltration is being monitored by our solution, and a certain playbook we've defined actually is being automated. So K Peters is actually switches soon the company and wants to steal data. Prior to that, he's very unhappy with the company he's currently working for, and that's why he's going to steal data. This can, of course, be done in various ways. You can send emails, you can download the lists directly to your laptop, to your device. And what he will do is he will use a functionality over the SE16, the table browser, and there he accesses then a certain table, here in this case the Mara table. This scenario, of course, can also work in different ways. Really, to understand here is this is one of 1,000 ways how you can steal data. He goes into the Mara, says, okay, I want to have here the maximum amount of entries and get the data onto my drive. You can download lists also over, of course, Fiori applications, mobile applications, which have a SAP backend or use data from an SAP backend. And this is really the challenge, to manually, out of thousands logs or log sources or lines of log, to really get the information you need in the right time, reducing the 277 days actually to immediate actually. So we can see here the download has started. Well, the download has been completed. We stole over 2 megabytes of data. And now, of course, as a hacker, stealing data, I do not only want to steal, let's say, the Mara, I also want to actually steal, let's say, the client, the customers, or the KNA1 table. And now you can see, as soon as I click on table contents, Pathlock, ABAC, user not authorized to view the data. This particular scenario we have already seen a lot of times actually at customer sites, where customers were wondering actually how actually the other companies in the market also had then the same new innovations they had, and they couldn't track down actually what was happening because they were manually evaluating the security posture of the SAP landscape, until we actually analyzed the logs and then could prove that actually there was someone getting data out of the system who has actually left the company already. So having said that, of course, a part of that is then the topic alerting. We have just executed actually this particular executed the download, and we can see we got an email directly saying, okay, we have a severe critical event detected on my particular system, data leakage. I can click on the view an event monitor, and I directly get my correlated information, what has happened here. So I see high amounts of data in a defined time. I can see which user was it, on which system. I can see corresponding events, how many occurred, and also according to the same data out of the same log, how many corresponding events did occur. We could say a certain JSTROS executed actually the same or downloaded also the same. And now, of course, we can determine based on the information we have, is it really a problem in my system? Is it really a vulnerability? Someone tried to steal my data? Or is it okay? And then we can say, okay, we can acknowledge the this particular event, and therefore then grant access again. What you have just seen here is the corresponding features of the ABAC, or the attribute-based access control, and the threat detection, where the threat detection raised the event that something critical happened. And then on top of that, the ABAC, the attribute-based access control, directly to countermeasures. And countermeasures could be not only here blocking actually access, but also masking data, for instance. And this is a pretty nice, corresponding features that we have there, because we have over 1,500 different threat signature patterns, which can directly be fed into the attribute-based access control, limiting the then access and directly executing for you your playbook for critical events. Because as soon as someone has a hold of your system, stealing data, you directly want to stop and limit the damage which already happened.
Thanks, Jonathan, for presenting. I will grab it back to me, and then I'll go to another slide. Let me show screen. Yeah, you can see the dashboard as well, I guess.
Yes.
So what we have seen on Jonathan's side is that you can jump into the event detection dashboard detail page. And I want to point out there is more than the detail page, because that's the executive dashboard, what I was talking about before, the combined view of vulnerabilities and threat detection. So here you got a total overview about your security situation. You got everything about the business critical things, the asset, the compliance status, high sensitive issues rising in the system, and also status of vulnerability assessments, vulnerability management, and also the status of threat detection. Then you see the trend of vulnerability and threat. Here you can decide if you want to see both, or you can click and just focus on one topic, or combine both in the one view again, and you see unresolved vulnerabilities, how old are they and how long are they in the system. So that's the one. And then you can jump from here to the threat detection dashboard. Then you go to the dashboard, and here you can see the dashboard application and the main topics. You can see the data collection. Is everything working as planned? And I see, okay, there are some issues in data collection on that system or on my security environment. I can click on that and see, okay, there's one system, okay, it's defect, and it should be defect because it's a test environment, and then it's okay, it's applied for test cases. And also I can click on the data sources, and I see there are a lot of things working, but there's on SDT, for example, there's one data source or two data sources, let's say the HR changelog and J2E security, log and security audit log, both these are not sending data, and I see, okay, that's misconfigured on my side, so I can change it here and say there is no HR changelog on that system. Also, there's no J2E instance on that system. I can remove the data collection, then the status is green here, and then I got an okay. So easily I can see if my data collection is running. And then, as Jonathan said before, I can apply quick filters here for critical downloads, for example. I see there are 63 critical downloads events within the last month, because that view is right now installed as last month. When I click on that, it's different data than Jonathan's because it's another system, but here I can see exactly the same information as Jonathan pointed out. Okay, there's some, it's because there's GoToWebinar on that site. I can't display that. I can see exactly the same information, and I can navigate through that. I just want to point that out and show you how to work that and how to proceed through the whole application. Since you got the notification, email notification for critical events, then you click as an executive directly on the event. You can get the information and then ask your security specialist what's going on with that event on the system. Please explain that to me. And you can keep that in your head, and you can follow the activities on that by navigating through the dashboard. So far from the demonstration part here, let's have a look on the next slide. And as Jonathan said, we are back to the layers of protection. We've seen the combination of threat detection with audit, attribute-based behavior. Jonathan mentioned before that there are several things you can install. You can install, first of all, the threat detection. Since when, or what's the critical amount of data? Is it when you download 2 megabytes? Is it when you download 4 megabytes? Is it when you download more than 10 documents within 1 hour? You can define that within the system, setting up that on threat detection side, and then you can apply a follow-up action like audit. Do you want to restrict the whole access for the whole system? Do you want to restrict access to the data by masking the data? Do you want to mask special content within special issues or reports within SAP? So you're totally free to apply the playbooks you defined for your system before with using that application. I think, Jonathan, do you want to add something here as well?
That summarized it pretty good. Important here to quote, every investment you already did in terms of defining playbooks, as already Raphael pointed out, you can adapt the threat detection, of course, to only trigger events for what is really critical for you, as well as launching countermeasures with attribute-based access control, depending also or well, based on your playbooks.
Yeah. So, so far from our side, and let's wrap it up with some takeaways we brought for you. First of all, streamline security operations by usage of dashboards. So I pointed out the dashboard perspective. When you have one dashboard for vulnerability detection as well as threat detection, you can see the whole security landscape and not just focusing on one point and make a decision without having the background knowledge of the other part. It's always important in security cases to keep both areas covered and to keep both areas in mind to make the right decisions, how to follow up with some actions. Also, yeah, it provides an appropriate level of detail for the stakeholders as they need it, our dashboards. So if you want to look on the dashboards as an executive, you can stay on the first pages and stay on that and focus on the main KPIs you're getting there. But if you want to go deeper, you can deep dive or drill down into the details and you drill down to the finding, then you can apply follow-up actions here. But also, if you're not executive, you're an analyst, you don't need the dashboard the first view. You don't have to open that. You can just stay on the threat detection application or on the vulnerability application, and then you can stay on the detail level as well. So you can stay on the event monitor if you just want to have the event monitor. So each level of detail is there if you want to have it on the right time. Justin, the next twos are for you.
Thanks. So also conducting the automation also kind of incorporates that your security officers or employees working on those topics are needed to think about escalation processes. Of course, we can give you some role models, some experience from our projects in the market, but the automation, creating the automation, and really also executing it and living then or having automated already the playbooks creates also a situational awareness about what is happening in the system. Is it really necessary to block then if this happens? And then also talking about the incident response is also quality-wise increased, as for defining an automation, you need to understand the process and you need to understand how the playbook really works. And therefore you will have your specialists really having a look on it and therefore raising the awareness and knowledge. And of course, and this is the most important point about threat detection, becoming also as a manager, then insights of a security analyst is that we have a single point of truth for the compliance status. So you combined with the appropriate level of detail, you can directly see as a manager, is my interest, am I compliant to a certain compliance policy? You have the first dashboard where you directly can see, okay, I am SOX compliant, I am GDPR compliant. Or then, of course, if you want to also check if people are really doing their job and not and really hardening your system, instead creating new vulnerabilities, let's say by code development or just messing around with some parameters or settings within the SAP system, you can directly see also as a manager and get your first guided glimpse of being a security analyst then. And also then, if you get a little bit more familiar, then really can also drill down, get the information you really need to understand. So with every check, we also provide then, of course, the texts, what is wrong in your system, which you can then check and see, and also then learn actually by using our tool.
So, and last but not least, no matter what you're doing, what kind of level of security you're already installed within your systems or environment, or if you're thinking about installing something, keep in mind that you always need to keep your security up to date. So if you have something installed, focusing on keep that up to date, to keep that running is better as to install new things and to lose effort you already invested in your environment. So keep your security up to date and think forward, make a plan and integrate it in your whole business application security strategy. So not focus on one system, keep in mind your whole environment. Yeah, so far from our side, I think now we can jump to the Q&A session.
Thank you, Jonathan and Raphael, for your presentation. It looks like we have several questions that have come in. Our first question is, does Pathlock have any product solution which caters to dynamic access based on user attributes, attribute-based access controls?
Yes, I'll take the answer for that question. So what we have seen is our solution for attribute-based access control. We not only give you or enable you to decide, just throw the solution at you and you define the policies yourself. We do have out of the box ready to run policies where we mask or also can block actually access to, based on attributes to the standard SAP transactions. But also if you have third-party applications, you can start our data collector, really getting then the information, what kind of data fields are there in this application, so you can also be guided by defining your policy.
Okay, great. Our next question is, how is this different from vulnerability scanners like Qualys? I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing this right.
Yes.
Qualys and SIEM tools like Splunk.
Good question, fair question. Two points here. On the one side, what you have seen so far is sitting inside of the SAP system itself. It's a certified transport being deployed on your system. And we have, by sitting inside of the SAP system, have the chance to get data more easily, pass data more easily, and finally also reduce cost of the SIEM solution. Because if you have then, of course, we can also log forward to a SIEM solution. You forward by reading data, most of the licenses out there, you will be charged per log line read or per bytes read. And this is where we also act already. So we do not say, okay, disregard a SIEM solution. We incorporate to SIEM solutions, really finding the needle in the haystack out of the SAP logs, normalizing the data to a more speakable, more informative events for the SIEM solution. And then we forward this also to the SIEM solution itself, reducing the licensing cost, and then also giving the right context by pre-filtering already. So you really know what is going on in the SAP system and do not have to create your patterns within the SAP system. Within the SIEM solution, sorry.
Okay, great. The next question is, could you give an example of a playbook?
Of course, we can give, we do have various playbooks around. Of course, playbooks depend on the cases, what you are trying to do or what your crown jewels are. Classical playbook we have where we can go actually into a demo and have a look on that is the classical BP, what kind of critical events around business processes, the business partners can happen and how to counteract. So it's really like a structure of potential misuse cases and how to answer those. And this is the basic structure. If there's a need for a little bit more information on playbooks, please feel free to reach out to us and schedule a call where we can then definitely have a deeper look on that.
Okay, great. Our next question says, what is specific with S/4HANA when you talk about this security framework?
Where we talk about S/4HANA, let me start,
yes,
Jonathan.
sure.
S/4HANA mostly is setting up a new environment or shifting your old environment to a new context. When you do that, you have the one-time possibility to install new security awareness or create new security awareness and to focus on that. I think also some patterns are changing and some parameters are different than on ECC systems, but mostly you're shifting more to let's say standard-based approach, because SAP is focusing on SAP standard functionalities within S/4HANA. It's less user self-developed tools, and then you have the chance to install a new process for security as well, and to rethink your approach while doing such a great or big shifting project.
Okay, and we just have one more question, time for one more question. Our next question is, how will this safeguard from ransomware attacks?
Also on that, mostly ransomware attacks are not based on the SAP system itself. It's mostly done within the OS level, and then covering or then regarding access, restricting access to the database. And you're not saving your database or database access on that, but you can prevent your system or your SAP system or your landscape by that your SAP system is not used as an entrance door. So if there is suspicious behavior from users, you can lock doors pretty fast, and you have a smaller attack phase. So that's mostly how you can prevent ransomware, but it will not prevent you from ransomware itself.
Well,
maybe you can add something.
Yes, sure. So looking at the cause of a ransomware attack, what is a ransomware attack? There some kind of software is being executed. So the structure of a ransomware attack is always the same. You have on the one side malicious payload, something like that, being deployed to your system. May it be an operating system, may it be your SAP system, and you execute it. And by execution, of course, normally the database will be ciphered or something like that, locking you from access to the system. This is the root, the ransomware in a nutshell. To understand how, now highlighting how the execution of a ransomware attack happens, is on the one side, you need to have the virus, let's call it virus, or might be a Trojan, something like that, being uploaded to your system somehow, and then being executed. And those two steps need to be executed for doing ransomware attacks, like clicking on the attachment in an email, something like that. So let's say in an SAP system, a malicious transport reaches your system. Then our solution transport control can actually block those malicious transports from being uploaded. On the other side, we also have the possibility to include actually also logs from user creation, so on and so forth, within our threat detection. And based on that, we can then react and say, okay, we will block the first step. So after the first step, so the second step, the execution actually of this malicious routine will be blocked.
Stephanie, I want to take one more minute, because there's a pretty interesting question coming up in the chat. Beside the data theft example, can you provide another example of that detection from access control perspective? I think that could be interesting for a lot of the attendees here, so I want to point that out. Yeah, there's I can easily show another example. For example, let's say there's a user or you're creating a new user. Normally, creating a user and signing in within the user account should not be done from the same terminal, because then you are restricting the or you're bypassing restrictions like password sharing, or it could be password sharing, or maybe a colleague or an employee is creating a user for suspicious activities on the system, and then when you sign in with a user created on the terminal, within a couple of minutes, we can at the same time block all activities in the system, not block the user, but restrict all access. If the manager says, okay, it's okay, there was a misuse, and quote that and say, okay, it's perfect, we approve that, and then the access is there, and you don't have to sign the user again or create the user again. Then it's just the restrictions are gone, and you can work with the user. I think that's an example from access control perspective.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for those questions and answers. If you'll go to the next slide, Raphael.
Of course.
We just wanted to say thank you to everyone for attending. And if you do have any more questions, we will be happy to reach out to you. You can email us at info@pathlock.com, and we'd be happy to answer any of your questions. So with that, we just wanted to say thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see you at future webinar events.